Well, hi, Josh.
How are you doing, Josh?
Doing well. How about yourselves?
Okay, we're good. Everyone, this is Josh Randall. He is running to take the seat that Romney is leaving. So, everyone,
U.S. Senate, and please
Yes.
welcome. And Josh, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm probably an atypical candidate in that I've never run for office before.
Ooh.
And KSL asked why you started with U.S. Senate. I said, well, go big or go home.
I like it.
And then I think Emory County asked me if they asked me, how I had time to do this. I've got 6 kids under the age of 10 and I'm still working full time. But I said, well, I don't have a very busy calling in my ward right now. So I figured I'd run for U.S. Senate.
Don't say that too loud or you might find yourself having a bigger calling.
I know, but
we can.
There we go.
I can also adjust the camera here, Holly.
So when you decided to run, that is not an easy decision, and Senate is not a simple, easy seat. Please, it's not like there's not enough. We probably could write the script ourselves, but tell us what urged you to take on this task.
Sure. Well, I joke a little bit at the beginning that go big or go home. I think we need good people everywhere, and I would be glad to serve and help in other ways as well. I do think there's a very pressing need for specific principles, for specific type of voice right now in the federal government, in Congress. Utah's values, Utah's legislature, for the most part, are in line with where I'm at. I think the last 5 years, we've got a little bit, I think we've got a lot of real estate developers in there right now, and some of their priorities have been a little bit different than mine in the state legislature. But by and large, if I listened to a little bit of Natalie Klein on before, there's certain things that we're passing in the legislature with regards to transgender bathrooms and things and different safeties for our schools. And I think that there are really good voices in there. So for me, I kind of feel like Mike Lee needs a companion. He's had 6 years where he's had somebody who's been on a little bit different page than he has. And I see that as a real challenge for a state to go and have influence when you've got 2 senators who on very important issues they're coming at it from opposite angles.
It's true.
So, I mean, that's a confession I've just made, and I don't know everybody in your audience, but I am more of a Mike Lee type of candidate. And I think in this race, I've had a chance to talk with most of the candidates, which is kind of atypical as well. I'll tell you, I've called John Curtis on the phone and had a talk with him for a little while. I talked with Brent Hatch on the phone for probably an hour and a half. I've talked with Chandler Tanner. I've talked with Trent Staggs on the phone. I've talked with Carolyn Pippin multiple times. And I feel like I have a pretty good idea of the different types of candidates in this race. And we're pretty unique. One of the things it talks about in the Republican Party platform is volunteerism. I think we definitely embody that in our style of doing this. My campaign manager is a volunteer, and she's also gorgeous. She's my wife. And she's been putting in a lot of work. She's texted thousands of delegates, and now we've got, I don't know all the new delegates we'll have. Weber County already has probably 80% of their delegates are new, which we expected less than that. But that's the only county that's given us a new list so far. But we expect that Rob Axon will give us a new list for the whole state soon. But we contact all of them. We're really reaching out. We have a group. We have a lot of volunteers who just spend time. And I believe there's strength in that. I would much rather see people, we'd rather have their hearts than their money for a couple of reasons. One reason, I think it's more effective. And I think we need a senator who's going to put that first, who's not sole purpose or sole gauge of success is how much fundraising he can do to give it to the elections industry. I don't feel a great need to prop up the elections industry right now. I think by the end of this, we've got, millions of dollars being spent by some of these candidates. And I just look at that and think only one of us is going to go to the Senate. And I find that unfortunate, to be honest, that there's so much money is going into the elections industry. As an accountant and CPA, I see my own profession as being an administrative expense. I'd actually rather simplify the tax code and have less accountants and being able to have us be able to do other trades besides tax law, tax accounting.
You mean like comedy?
Like
Accountants and comedy. Well, here's something like you mentioned, the volunteerism and stuff. That's huge. Are you running convention caucus only, or are you getting signatures?
Convention caucus only.
Love
And
it.
I'll be honest, I don't really look at the signature gatherers as being like, I don't look at that and say, shame on you for doing it. But I do look at it as there's a difference between those who are gathering signatures through contracted companies
Right.
that specialize in doing signature gathering, and those who are doing it through trying to get people who are their supporters, their family, their friends to go out and get 28,000 signatures. So I think those are a little bit different. I think we've got 4 people who are trying to do it, and maybe five gatherers. And is my understanding right now, and they could correct me if I'm wrong, but 4 of them are pretty much, they're paying people to do it. And
you almost have to with that many that's required at Senate.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I did explore that at one point a little bit, and I thought, I don't know. It's quite the ask. It's quite an ask to ask of your family members to go out and gather thousands of signatures. And I don't know that I believe in the caucus system anyway. So, I mean, I know that we can reach out to 4,100, 4,200 people.
Yeah.
And that's a lot more manageable. We've done it, and we're doing it through virtual meetings each week. And so for me, I figure that's a better approach.
I respect that a lot. I'm a party chair, so I do.
Yeah,
I do
you'll be getting a hold of her.
Recommend, and I'm a state delegate too. So that's why Jared and I kind of do this, where we're adamant about getting to know candidates, because a lot of people we want the populace to know all about all the candidates, but we also want an opportunity to share this with our state delegates. The state party will get you your list. We still have counties that are still reporting, ours included. And we're adamant about letting those people that are trusted at their precincts to get to know you. We want to make sure that everybody gets a fair shot. And I believe the signature gathering on that level, from the Senate level, with that many thousands, it's created an election industry on its own. Signature gathering wasn't a thing for SB 54. And yet now there's businesses propped up, out of state businesses, that have been allowed to do it. And these are teenagers knocking on doors asking for a signature, who many times know very little about the candidate they're asking. And they're making a dollar amount per signature. That's how they profit. Yeah. So it's tough. It's a tough one.
I think I saw an advertisement for $30 to $60 an hour plus $4 per signature, which
the gatherers make that?
The gatherers. It was up in Cache Valley. It was up in the Herald Journal or something. I saw a family member send it over to me, and I thought, wow, that's pretty good pay.
Makes you think, if you don't maybe I don't have to be an accountant. Maybe I can.
Maybe you should just gather signatures.
Walk the streets and knock on doors. I mean, imagine the calluses that get built up right about yonder.
They don't sign it.
No, from knocking
doors. Yeah.
They're probably Ring doorbells now. But hey, so tell me, you live in you live in Emery County?
We live in West Valley City.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in Cache County in a little town called Hyde Park, which is a couple miles north of Logan.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know where that's at.
Yeah.
And you're accountant? You went to college in where?
I got a bachelor's degree at Utah State in accounting and a master's degree at Weber State in accounting.
Nice.
And I work as a CPA and the Trust Lands Administration Audit Manager right now.
Trust Lands. So we've got people that are
we got some questions
regarding your positions, and a lot of this is going to be, if you say you're a Mike Lee type senator, a lot of us get that, because we know there were 2 polar opposites, what seemed like polar opposites at the Senate through this currently, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people really supported Romney, some don't like Mike Lee. Some people think Mike Lee doesn't get anything done because he stands on the Constitution and the values and he doesn't like to budge.
Those darn principles
And
got in the
other
way.
people think that Mike or Mitt Romney ventured away from our party platform. And so they both get fair arguments, maybe. But when I think with someone like Mike Lee, when you stand by the principles of the Constitution, it's easy to do your job, but you often stand alone or with just a handful of people. We'd like to know.
We got questions from
Fred Swain.
From customers. They
Hi,
want to know
Fred.
your position on abortion, gun rights, and federal spending.
Sure. Well, just to kind of echo what you were saying about Mike Lee, I think you do have to stand alone sometimes. I mean, he's been 1 out of 6 from our congressional delegation on various votes in the last couple of years, whether it's a debt ceiling suspension or whether it is a continued resolution or even on social issues like the Respect for Marriage Act. And I can tell you on those issues, there would have been 2 of us, 2 of 6, if I would have been in Congress with him. But I keep moving forward, and then my face is covered. I was probably going to try and close that window, but
you're okay. Just lean back. So, what's your position on abortion? What would you? We know what the state of Utah has implemented. We know what Donald Trump is seeking to implement, and we know what
which is basically states' rights.
The Democrat Party. So the the federal government's gone with state rights. Donald Trump wants to do a 16-week, after 16-week abortion ban, except for in danger of the mother. And then you've got Colorado. I think you can have abortions up to 72 years after birth or whatever. And
No, it's just called
however
murder.
they're going. But what's your position? What would you support as a representative of the state on the federal level?
Right. Well, I've had a lot of talks with my wife about this topic, and I think the narrative nationally needs to change, and this is something where we could use a strong voice as a senator. The Republican Party platform here in Utah talks about family. It talks about the role of a mother and father to nurture their kids and teach their children. And a lot of my family type social issue positions are right in line with the Republican Party platform. When I think of abortion, part of the narrative that needs to change is that, some people say Republicans hate women. I mean, what a silly thing to say. It's very adamant in our platform, and it's something we need to emphasize, that the positions we take on this is because we care deeply about women and we care deeply about our children. And we understand that when families fall, our government will struggle, and it doesn't matter what kind of laws we pass, they're not going to be adequate because the families are destroyed. And I look at this as a moral issue and as an issue that I think the statistics bear out that Republicans have the stronger position on this. And now I know that people will go and argue that, but my position, I guess that's a long answer. That's giving a narrative response for my answer, I guess, to start with. But I believe that Utah is a pretty good model for the nation. I think there are exceptions for rape, incest, life of the mother, fetal viability that will not be able to survive, and it's verified by multiple doctors. Those are kind of the exceptions we have in Utah law. After 18 weeks, we still have an exception for the life of the mother. And I would say that on a federal level,
Sorry.
a lot of candidates will say, I am one who believes it's better to have this at the state level. However, if I could convince people in Congress, I would try to convince them that it is appropriate for us to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and property. And I consider us protecting the life of the unborn as part that can fall under, justifiably, under the federal government's scope,
Constitution.
under
That's
the
absolute.
Constitution. And so in that regard, I don't have a problem with us mirroring what we have in Utah at the federal level, if I can convince people to do it. And that is a big part of what makes me, I think, maybe different, is I'm a bit of an optimist. I am someone who believes we can persuade people. I think we can get more people to come to this side of the aisle. but we have to have a different type of voice and a different type of narrative, and it's got to be persuasive. But
Well, do you think the federal government should even be in this fight or even have a say? I mean, I think that if we preserve life, we're preserving women these babies grow up to be women and young men, but federal government should, I mean, the Supreme Court said this is a state's issue, as it should be. And I agree with that fully. I'm pro-life probably more than even most people. I think that if you acknowledge it's a life at any week, it's a life. But I understand where you're saying is that Utah has a pretty fair and reasonable stance right now on the ability to have abortion. But I mean, with the Constitution, I'm not sure that we should be going back to the federal rules anymore.
Yeah. I'm reading this Facebook user says, "Quit ho-humming and state your position." I don't know if that, but yeah, I would support after 18 weeks a ban on abortion unless it's for the life of the mother, even at a federal level. So I do appreciate people's view that this should be a state issue, and I do agree it's still finding its way back to the federal government on occasion. It's still being discussed, and when the discussion comes up, that is the position that I would take on it. I'm in favor of having a ban on abortion after 18 weeks for anything but the life of the mother. And here in Utah, I mean, we've kind of had that law stayed. I liked our trigger law, but I don't think it's actually in effect. My understanding is that a third district court judge, I want to say his name's, I hate to throw a name out under the bus, but I think his name is Andrew Stone, that made the judgment that it needs to be stayed. And I disagree with that. I think it's a problem that we're having that type of, that it's holding up the will of the people in the state of Utah, represented by our legislature, that we have a judge who's kind of overturned that right now. And that's, I guess the ACLU has been involved.
What are you referring to?
On the trigger law for when Roe versus Wade got tossed back. You're saying a judge put a stay on that? So
that's my understanding.
So yes. That right now it's just a talking point for the left. It's not in effect. And I understand the reticence to say, I mean, like I'm a 10th Amendment almost worshiper, but murder's still illegal kind of federally and flowed out through every state. So I understand that argument too. That is a tough one. And I come at anti-abortion from an agnostic standpoint. I don't come at it through religion. I come at it through
science,
an extreme libertarian position that if you make a mistake, that is something you own now, and you shouldn't pass that mistake on to someone else. And I think that aborting a child for a mistake you made is passing a punishment that you earned onto another human being life. And the ultimate innocent life.
And I think too, it reflects, like we talked about before, if a society isn't willing to acknowledge its life, it's a person.
Yeah.
Then they're not going to acknowledge when it's an old person or,
talking to you,
depression, someone with depression, when assisted suicide comes into it, when we put abortion at a viable fetus, 18 weeks, it's fingers, toes, ears, and nose. It's heartbeat. It's got a brain. I mean, I think we could do more, but I think that they're so busy trying to decide, what is compromise. And if you just stop the conversation, say, look, we're talking about a human being. And though it can't survive on its own yet, you created it, whether you're accountable or not. Adoption should be options. There's ways to prevent a pregnancy when you've had a mistake.
Yeah,
but they're out there. So it's such a tough topic to get into.
Let's move on to sexier.
Keep humming and be nice, Fred, because somebody that takes a bold stance on abortion. I mean, this is a topic that the left is weaponizing through this election. It could cost us seats.
It'll always be weaponized. It's the left's weaponization to purchase college-educated liberal women on something that they never use. It's interesting when you think about it. But anyways, on to sexy stuff. What's your position on the Second Amendment, and how quick would you sign to do away with the NFA?
Well, that is a pivot. The last thing I'd say about abortion, I think I'm not a libertarian on it. However, I do understand that we're pluralistic. And when I vote, people should understand that I'm not trying to force my beliefs on them. I'm trying to say, I am convinced this is what's best for the country, and I'll vote this way, and you can vote the way you want to vote. But if I was any more liberal on it, my wife wouldn't be able to look at me. I mean, and I just can't imagine being in the room watching the baby trying to dodge the needle, on an ultrasound. For me, that would be a psychological blow that I would not recover from the rest of my life.
It's heavy.
And so I don't, I'm not trying to talk for women and be in their seat, but I can say as a father, if I were to watch one of my children in the womb trying to dodge the needle and wincing to get out of the way from being killed, I wouldn't have been able to stomach that for the rest of my life.
And that's a fetus that's like 9 weeks when that's happening. And they have that awareness that it's hurting them. So again, let's go into comedy, because that's going to be a really good career move for both of us.
That is heavy.
We went really heavy, and abortion is a really tough topic, and way to start the whole meeting off with abortion, Fred.
Yeah, Fred, you couldn't have started off with something easy, like, how do you feel about genocide? The border? But anyways, gun rights, Second Amendment. What's your go on that? What's your take?
I'm not a huge scholar about all the different gun laws in the different states. I mean, I hate to say I would just support Utah's laws on this again, but I agree with it. I think that it's vital to our history as a country, and it is something that distinguishes us from other countries. So I absolutely support. We've got to be able to have firearms. We don't know what's coming ahead of us, but we do see what we've had in our history, and people need to have the right to defend themselves. I tend to be, on this issue, I tend to say people need to be able to, I tend to be pretty liberal. You can get a gun unless you've proven that you shouldn't be able to have a gun through committing certain types of crimes, felonies. And that's, I think, how the law in Utah reads on this same issue, is that certainly if you've committed a gun crime, you're probably done having a gun for the rest of your life. And I don't think that's a problem. But that even that has to be litigated to say, well, what is the crime? And, maybe even proven by a jury that, hey, this was not a justified use of the gun.
So you would make sure there's due process in all instances where rights are denied.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a pretty serious deal to say this person can't own a firearm. It's a written out right in our Constitution, and it's very important to the fabric of our country, and it has been since the beginning.
Let me ask you this. I'll dig down a little deeper, and this is where you're not an avid gun person. A part of the NFA is noise suppressing elements. You have to prostrate yourself before the federal government and give them some money and grovel. You have to get a tax stamp to get a noise suppressing, a safety device. A
silencer.
Yeah, they're not called silencers, they're suppressors.
Okay, but for people who are lay people, when it comes to guns, say stuff we know.
Would you support amending the NFA to remove sound suppressors off the NFA, the tax stamp list?
That sounds reasonable to me. I'd have to go look into it some more, but it sounds reasonable. I don't know.
It's funny, in European countries, not only are they not illegal in any of them, in a few of them, they're mandatory because it's a safety device.
For your eardrums?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But over here, they act like if you get them, all of a sudden you're, I don't know,
James
only evil people get them. How many banks have been robbed with suppressors?
Well,
I'll bet the murder list, the murder like in Conus
Premeditated.
murders with suppressors is, I'll bet there's 0 in that number, and it's the first letter.
so I'm wondering, like, where it comes to, is
Oh,
that the
there's your
beautiful
manager.
wife?
There's
I know
say hi to the manager, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, manager.
Isn't she great?
Yeah.
So when
You
it
can
comes
make
to
that one
gun rights and this tax stamp that he's talking about and this regulation stuff, do you believe that an American citizen should be able to own any gun that could help them prevent a tyrannical government like the Constitution states, or do you think there should be, restrictions on handguns, rifles, things like that?
Well, it's not a very comforting idea to think about a bunch of automatic weapons in the streets. That said,
Well, they're in the streets. They're
know,
just not legally in the streets.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
who own them are criminals.
exactly.
But
I mean,
American citizens, good American citizens, can't own them without certain restrictions.
Well, they can. They just have to pay out the butt, and it drives the price of such item into the stratosphere.
yeah, I still tend to be liberal on this as well. I would say more often than not that I would favor making it easier for law-abiding citizens to have what the criminals have. So, I mean,
So when you say
make a point.
liberal, you
Criminals-
mean liberal in the classical sense.
Liberal meaning
before they change the
Indi-
definition.
let the guns
individual,
let the
individual
guns
rights.
be purchased. Let there be
All right.
guns, type of thing.
Well, we have background checks in place.
Yeah.
I mean, we have laws in place. We might as well follow them, but that should be fair for everyone. So other issues. So what's your stance on the border right now? That's a hot topic. And President Biden addressed it last night. And that was so weird to hear him talk about
It's all Republicans' fault.
Lakin Riley and use her name wrong. And then
Yeah.
uses her name, says her name,
Oh.
and then talks about the burden at the border and the many people who have been actual victims of illegals, which got Nancy Pelosi upset because he called them illegals. So now the left are eating their own. But that's his policy that has created this, and yet he makes it sound like his predecessor, who had 1/10 of the crossings and crimes. Where do you stand on this issue?
Well, I don't believe this last bill even remotely addressed the problem. I think
You
that
mean
there's-
all the money for Ukraine and Israel didn't deal with the border?
well,
Weird.
yeah,
Tell me more.
nor do I think that the border laws that were involved in that bill, with James Lankford helped co-author. I think there were many problems with it. Mike Lee went on his website and kind of spelled them out for anybody who wants to go down the list. But I tend to be, and this is another one where the narrative needs to change. I'm very strict on the border. This is something that's right in the purview constitutionally of the United States to provide for the general defense. And we've got to do that on a federal level. For me, and there's things that senators can help with. We can control the purse. We can defund sanctuary cities. We can defund sanctuary states, and we should. We can help do things to get the border wall completed, and we should. We can help get the military involved with cartels, human trafficking, and drug trafficking, and we should. We can help to have an e-verify system on a national basis, and we should. We can help with exponentially increasing our deportations, and we should. And the narrative on this, too, cannot be Republicans are racist. And it can't be that Republicans caused the problem because they didn't vote for this bill that just came through, which is totally ridiculous. The fact that people even remotely want to blame Republicans for what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years. I've heard Joe Biden say on multiple occasions things to the effect of, we want to have a constant stream of immigrants. We want, on day one when I come into office, we want to have them just surge the border. There's no question this is a tone at the top problem, and it started with Joe Biden.
He said that he was running. He said he wants all of them to come there. Send me all of them there. And now they're all backtracking, like, oh, it's not his fault. No, we got to write a new law that has, what was it, 74 $4 billion for Ukraine and $64 billion for Israel. And I think the number was down around it was
I think it was 16,000 or 10,000.
yeah, for the border, just under $1 billion. And you're like, and they called it the border bill.
They call it just whatever they call it. Just know it's the opposite. That's
And I
what
was
I've
like,
learned with bills.
this is what they're
legislation
pushing at us. It's ridiculous. It's we've gotten to where our government is a theater. Maybe that's the best way to say
political
it.
theater. It's true.
No.
The lines are blurred there in DC too. So having direct and absolute accountability in what you say and what you want when you become elected has to be absolute, and to where if you don't pull it off, you need to go. Like, we need to know who believes what, and there can't be any blurred lines in DC. I think that we've lost DC because we can't tell what parties what.
DC's been long lost. We're fitting to lose the U.S. We keep heading this way.
I think you've nailed it on the border. I think you've nailed it. And border reform is probably necessary, where the ability to come across legally needs to be done. And we need to make it so the companies who want to sponsor people come over, people that want seasonal workers, they should be sponsors of these people and young men and women and families, whatever. But yeah, we need to seal it up first. Seal it up and figure out who's in here and get them out. I don't see any place. Do you see place for amnesty?
I don't right now. I don't think it's appropriate. And that's, I believe the Republican Party of Utah is very much aligned with my position on this as well. And I'm pretty open on this. And I'm very much sorry, this chat thing keeps popping up, but we've got to change. We've got to have, with various laws, and especially one, in particular, as we talk about the border, we have to look at what we're incentivizing. We have to look at the type of accountability that we're requiring of people. And there's various laws right now that are taking accountability out of the equation, and people are just being incentivized. They don't have any reason to not pay these cartels, because the reward is that you will be better off than waiting for the system in your home country right now. If you get in under Joe Biden, the sentiment is you've gotten in. You can start using it's affecting all these things, but you can start using the healthcare benefits in the United States. They won't turn you away at our hospitals.
Nope.
You can start using the education programs. You can start using, you're going to flood our housing industry. And this is having major repercussions, not to mention just the general lawlessness that is contributing this decriminalization type movement, which is a problem. But it is really hurting us on various sectors, economically and the general morale of our country. I mean, it's a real blow that we're taking at the southern border right now. The fentanyl use in southern Utah, I think I read, had excuse me, maybe 3 or 4 times as many deaths in the last couple of years, just exponential increases. And it's been a major issue. So I hope that every candidate in this race is going to see this as one of the first top priorities that needs to be addressed. So I'm very much in line with Donald Trump on this. I don't think Donald Trump did everything right in his presidency. I think he spent too much, but I'm also CPA, an audit manager, and I want a balanced budget. And I think I would have loved to have seen him get rid of Anthony Fauci and some other people working around him. I think he understands more now the type of blowback and pushback that was going to be ahead of him. I don't know that he realized that when he went into his first term. But so there's some things that I would have liked to have seen him do differently, but immigration is not one of them. Unfortunately, the media has been fairly successful at telling everybody that Donald Trump is racist because of this.
Well, the voice box.
And
But
senators
it's
have
taken
got
the
to,
power from the word. I mean, I that used to be really terrible to be called. And now they've used it so much, it's lost its power. It's xenophobia, every phobia. Like, I'm not afraid of xeno.
I've seen it.
You know what I mean?
The Scientologists are
It's just-
calling now.
Yeah, it's words. And once you start taking the power away from him, let him call him racist. His policies were fair. And even legal immigrants who came across are supporting his policies because they did it that way. And they don't want to, they wanted to be Americans, and they did it the way the Americans have asked and legally. And now they're watching people come in and load a system that they're contributing to. And I think polls show he's getting lots of support for immigrants.
Well, I'm excited. I'll bet over the next 10 years, we're going to see a study done, an academic study done on the levels of crime and how they tie into illegal immigrants. Because you always hear that voice that, well, legal immigrants only commit this % of the crime that's out there. But if they break it down, even left out the initial crime of them entering, I'll bet illegal immigrants, where they initiate coming here under a crime, I'll bet we're going to see a lot more crimes involved with them, including fraud and healthcare fraud and all that stuff. But also, I think we're going to see a rise on the violent crime side.
Do you think that the places like the FBI, the people that put these statistics together, are going to fairly report this?
It's not going to be them that does it. It'll be professors like Roland Fryer. If you guys don't know who he is, look him up. He's a real interesting cat. He did a study on actual police violence against minority males, black males in particular, and found out the truth and had to get a police escort forever because he reported on the truth.
But it was
it will come out
4-to-1 or something, or 10-to-1, something like that, compared to whites versus blacks that have violent initiations with.
Yeah, it's he found there was no difference in murders, in police murders, between black and white by the numbers. And he caught flack, and that professor at Harvard, he's a professor at Harvard. I think he's an economist too.
Then he must have tenure, because Harvard doesn't like.
They tried, that lady that just got fired from their gay. She tried firing him. She couldn't. But anyways, we got another question. Balancing the budget, which federal programs would you cut? But I want to go into a dream world right now. So anyways, you get handed position of accountant, God emperor of the day, and you can organize what we have situated in DC and our deficit right now. How would you go about, what steps would you go about to correct that? Just get a feel for where your mind's at there.
Sure. I don't care for the 12 budget appropriations process as it is currently. And I don't really like that in Utah, we have something of an appropriations where the entire House is all involved with the appropriations and budgeting process. I would push, if I'm the emperor of accounting, for Congress and the Senate to have it work the same type of way, that we're constantly using the whole body on this specific issue to get a balanced budget. I look at it as we don't look at little budgets for each piece. We'd start from the top down approach and say, we've got $5 trillion to work with. We're going to use 4.5 trillion of it and keep a surplus for a rainy day or to pay down the debt. And we're going to say, what is the top priority? That comes first. Now we have to fund that. And then we're going to go down the list. And when we run out of money at 4.5, we've got some major cuts to take place. I'm talking maybe like layoffs of 1 to 1.5 million people, potentially some reforms.
We try to keep this show G-rated. You got to walk into something like that gentle, okay? You got to use euphemisms and stuff.
Members of the government? Wow.
Come on now.
Well, and when you say
we're going to have to put this on
top priority, what's the top priority? What's the top funding priority for our government?
Well, in the Congress, it talks, or in the Constitution, it discusses, primarily defensive in nature. We've got our military. We've got our court system, our federal court system. we have post offices and postal roads, kind of through infrastructure like roads.
Mhm.
Besides those things that are explicitly spelled out in the Constitution,
ATF.
everything else is fair game to hack out.
Social
Was that
Security,
the
fair game?
Argentine president that wants to
Yeah.
Oh,
chop
melee.
everything
We
off?
really like him.
Oh gosh.
But like something like Social Security, I mean, that might be fair
Privatized.
game, but the problem is you've got people who've paid into it forever. And
I do think
need
we do need to look at a method of dealing with the Social Security over the next few years, or don't. It'll deal with
won't,
itself.
Yeah, it won't be here when we need it. When we
It'll
need
deal
it,
with
so
itself.
we paid
Don't worry
into it
about
our
it.
whole lives.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to make the axe to it, and in a way that's smart and is going to protect our seniors, and that isn't going to increase our budget. But that's not just it. I mean, we've got welfare programs that are just so out of reach. I would cut day one the money spent on shrimps on a treadmill and ducks mating habits in
Oh,
certain
you mean
colonies.
the studies they do?
The studies that are so crazy that the government funds in grants, and people forget grants
Shrimp
is not free money. Grants is still taxpayer dollars. So if we could actually put our money into having a ready law enforcement and our law enforcement and our military and the people designed to protect us as stated by the Constitution. I mean, the federal government only has a couple of jobs. The rest belongs to the state. And yet they're so bloated and so overly funded that we've lost that.
Yeah.
Afuera. That's what Dwayne says. Afuera.
Are you seeing Dwayne's chat?
I
Yeah.
think
Okay.
I see.
Okay, so that's our
don't see
our
Dwayne.
producer. That
He's
you
our
can see
producer.
him.
He's
Just take it down.
he's making comments. Well, one of the so there's a couple questions about that. Yeah, cutting the budget and all that. I think that definitely needs to happen. I like that. How would it be if the House had to sit there and go through line items on every dollar spent? I think you would see the budget get cut because the House had to go through it all. They would just be like, we're done. We're tired. AOC throw her, you can't have an office assistant go through it. You have to treat it like you're on a city council or a county council or whatever. You have to go through it by line. What would that, because I think they'd give up the government would quit spending in what? May?
No, they would
March?
They'd never quit spending.
They'd be like,
they would be at war to preserve their own districts for starters, then
Sure.
their states, then their special programs. I mean, it's so hard to get somebody to risk their election on programs. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that if they went line by line, that would take a year.
We're in a tough situation. And the best answer I ever heard about Social Security came from that lady libertarian presidential candidate last go around. She had the best answer, the only one that was concise. And she said, well, I will sell off government lands, government properties to raise money, sell it off. Now, that could end up being an abuse here in Utah. See, now the government, but anyway, she would get rid of that. But she's also talking about buildings. Get rid of those buildings, like an FBI building or an ATF building, which
You'd
again,
have to
a G-rated show. Yeah, eliminate those down. But then she says, I would have a cutoff date. And after this cutoff date, you stay on Social Security, and we're going to honor that agreement. Prior to that cutoff date, we are giving you money back to make you whole, and you can turn around and reinvest that. But the Social Security system, it's you can hate me, argue it, but that bill it's going to happen. We cannot, at least in its current iteration,
it's not sustainable.
We can't keep it going indefinitely. We cannot.
I agree with you. And I think what Holly talked about, how, some of the changes that need to happen right now, and this might make me different than other candidates, we're because of our campaign being very volunteerism, obviously we don't answer to our donors. And we, if we did, it would be just answering to ourselves, and we don't spend a lot on it ourselves. We put in a lot of time. It's a lot of time and a lot of hours that we're out talking to people and doing virtual meetings and whatnot, and making phone calls and sending text messages. But it's not popular to say that you're going to amend Social Security. And
No.
people have put that money in. And I'm one who believes in giving every single dollar back with some return to the people who have that money in. But I do have a plan to phase it out, to get it to be privatized. And
let's hear it. Come on, lay it on me.
well, sure. I mean, I don't
I'm
know how
getting
much
rid
you
of
want
the
to get into the
G-rating.
details. I don't know how much time we have, but
Hey, go hard. Let me hear it.
okay. Well, from a specific standpoint, I mean, if you did an analysis, if you put in a couple, I one time did an analysis looking at what your money would do if you started at age 23 or so, and you put it into the S&P 500 until age 63, and you retired this year, just this year. You retire, and from age 62 or 63, you're taking that money for the rest of your life in monthly annuity type withdrawals or just monthly payments. You're going to figure out how much needs to be left of your I would first of all change it to a 401k system instead of the annuity system that it is right now. The annuity system actually encourages the government to want people to die young, which I don't really think it's a gambling type system, and they want you to die because that's how they make, lose less money off of it. But
Talking to you, Cuomo.
talking to who?
Cuomo.
And,
Cuomo, Whitmer, all those ones that sent the sick people into old folks' homes.
Oh, yeah.
You're just cutting the grass.
I hope that wasn't the intention.
He's right in the middle of
Yeah, go on.
this explanation, and I'm trying to stay awake because money talk and stuff. Most people, 401ks and all of that, like a lot of people, because the school doesn't teach you these things in school, you learn them the hard way. So IRAs and what is better, is the stock market safer? The government's certainly not giving you any interest off of it, et cetera, et cetera. So this is very important.
Anyways, I want to go back.
But how does it get privatized?
When you worked it out,
401k?
When you worked it out, what did you work out? What are the numbers?
Well, what I worked out essentially was whatever you put into Medicare and in Medicaid, if you were to put it into Fidelity, Vanguard, just put it in a mutual fund that mirrors the S&P 500, which is essentially saying, I want to support American capitalism. These are the biggest 500 revenue type companies in the country. If you would have done that during those 40 years, your benefits would have been at least 3 or 4 times greater than what the Social Security system is offering you in your retirement. And I think people maybe look at that. I mean, we had someone just made a comment, if I confiscated from me and all the money, I'd be a millionaire or something. I can't remember. And that's the truth.
Wayne. Yeah.
The federal government they're not effective at producing. I love people have the option of fueling the productive arm of our country. All of our policies need to be geared at increasing the productive arm of our citizens and decreasing the drain of administrative expenses of our federal government. And this is a big part of it. The Social Security Administration, I think, employs 70,000 people, and they probably manage a similar type of trillions of dollars to maybe Vanguard. And Vanguard doesn't. I mean, they provide way more services. They do it. And it's not because the people at the Social Security Administration are bad people, but it's because of the checks and balances and the way the government works. It's a very slow moving ship. If you have a sole proprietorship, you move fast. If you have a partnership, you move a little bit slower. S Corp slower, C Corp slower. If you're a publicly traded company, a little bit slower then still. And then if you're a state government, you're slower still. And then the federal government is just the slowest. It's just, and the incentive is to have checks and balances and be fair, but not efficient. And so there's no question in my mind.
With government, you're not enticed to do a good job. Sometimes perversely, you're enticed to not do a good job to secure your job. You never want your job to be successfully done, because that done word is a negative effect on your future employment.
Anymore. Yeah. If the government gets more efficient, that means it gets smaller, and that means jobs.
And I actually would advocate for making government employment more at will. Where I work in the Trust Lands Administration, they told me that before I started, said this is kind of a quasi-government type agency. We don't run the same way as many agencies in Utah, and it is at will, just so you know. And I actually think that would be that the model that we have at the Trust Lands Administration I would like to see something more similar with our universities and our federal employees, our federally funded universities. I don't really care for the tenure system, the merit system of, you get to a certain point and it's almost impossible to sever you as an employee. And that culture, I think, needs to change to be more geared around, these are the projects that need to be done. We employ the people to do these projects. When they're done, we don't employ more people, or we relocate them to the private sector if we need to. But, I guess, so we kind of detoured a little bit, but if you wanted to talk more about the Social Security program, I would have different tiers.
What's your plan? Would you have like an opt out for an 18-year-old day one? What's your plan?
He's going to tell you.
Yeah, I think that.
He's excited.
By the way, are you guys? I don't know. I haven't watched your podcast before.
We're cousins.
Yeah, we're.
Yep.
Though we found out we're cousins
We're
after we
polar
started the
opposites.
podcast.
We're polar opposite people, but
Okay.
I'm a Republican and he's like a controlled anarchist.
No, I'm independent.
A controlled anarchist.
Yeah.
I
Controlled.
don't even know what that means.
He's agnostic and I'm
So when he says
Christian.
it's rated R,
He gets excited when you talk about
laying off federal employees.
Yeah, that excites him. And if you bring up
No,
a
come on.
guillotine, he's gonna go crazy because he's ready to go. He's also a historian, and he will bore you to
I'm
tears.
not a historian. I'm
with
a
stuff he
person
knows
that
about
enjoys
history.
history.
Okay. Well, these aren't always popular topics, and my dad.
I know the numbers are boring and dry, but they're important.
They are.
They're the real thing.
This is part of why I'm in the race right now. I
solutions.
really
We're not
feel like
getting
I can
those.
help. I feel like I can help, and I feel like I can persuade people to come to the right side of this issue. But yes, I am convinced that our entitlement programs, or not, if you don't want to call it an entitlement program, there is an entitlement side to Social Security. It's got a progressive, the way that it works, it takes 35 years of your monthly income over 35 years, and it gives you 90% of your first tier, like $1,300 per month, and then 30% of your next portion. Anyway, not that you want to get into all that, but there is a progressive piece to that. A little bit of a redistribution of wealth, if you will. But the way that I look at this, I would like to see it more like a 401k. And for people above the age of 62, it would be you continue to get a specific rate of return from what you already have put into the program. If you have got your money back already, well, the way I would look at it is, what would you have made with that money over the course of your career and all the years that you were saving that money in a secured, guaranteed return type of a bond, whether that's somewhere between 2 to 3 or 4%. Now, it's not going to be as good as what the stock market did, but you'll have that option. Or you can have accelerated payback and get your money back quicker, but then it's gone. But that's like the way that sounds confusing. I just start by saying the people above the age of 62 who are already getting benefits, I would look at what they put in up to that age with a specific type of return. And I would say, how much of what you have how much have you been paid out and what is left after that? And then we'd have to start saying, you are going to either have to have a lower payment for the rest of your life, or you need to understand that this is the amount that you put in and this is the return that it had. And for the people above 62, though, I would give them a higher rate of return because they don't have the option. For those who are 52 and up, I would give them a lower rate of return on that money, or they could have it pulled out over about 10 years and they don't get any return on it. They're just getting their money back.
What happens? Because we've got a community that you have to retrain, number one, about this whole system. But what happens for the people who plan poorly or stay at home moms their whole lives and they turn 62 and they haven't put much into the system? What happens? You still have to have a social program. People, what happens to them when the money's gone?
Well,
and you can't give them less because senior citizens sometimes are living on that Social Security, which gets taxed, by the way, which is just stupid. But they're living on that. And let's say the stock market crashes their actual, the stuff they did right, the investments they made into that 401k years and years ago has been lost. They have to wait for it to build back up. They could have done everything right. And now we're in an economy like this and they can barely feed themselves. So what do we do as a society to protect them?
It's a cultural shift. It has to be a cultural shift. And that sounds painful. The political pendulum is going to be very difficult. This started 90 years ago. We've got to get people out of the mindset of it's the job of a large centralized federal government to make sure that I have food in my stomach, clothing on my back, housing. I mean, Joe Biden just told everybody he's going to give them $400 a month to pay their mortgages.
How's that going to work? Did he say he was going to do it through a tax incentive?
Tax credit, I think, for
How's that going to work?
Years.
$400 a month on tax credit. How's that?
Yeah, taxes are already
This
filled
is
out
another.
too,
This is
by the
another
way.
issue that has to do with what we're incentivizing and accountability. And this program that he wants to put in now, I'm not. We don't need to incentivize debt right now on a personal level or on a federal level, and we don't need the government's proper role, in my opinion, needs to be redefined back to what it was 115 years ago. I think every time we have an emergency, people get the idea of, you'll have an FDR or some other president that says, hey, this is an opportunity to say, how can I change the scope of what I'm able to do as the president and take advantage of that emergency because of the fear of the people and because of
Well, you can't have a bunch of old people on the streets. And if they don't have family caring for them, this is going to be the transition of all time. What do you do with them?
Transition.
Because people have done what's right. On top of paying Social Security, they've done what's right. They've invested their money. They've saved. And then some stupid government makes an economy fail or closes the economy during COVID, and they lose all their savings in that stock market, or a bond's not paying much. The interest rates are crap. And now what they've planned on, their life is affected by what the government does, no matter what they do, unless they're hoarding money in their mattresses like it used to be when they didn't trust the banks. What do they do? Because we don't have a cultural society that takes care of their elderly. I mean, we're not like China, Japan, Asian countries where they're raised knowing I will care for my parent when they are old. It is tradition. It is all that. Nowadays, like our society says, hey, when they can't take care of themselves, we're going to throw them in a government home, which is not good care all the time. So for the people, I know everyone doesn't plan accordingly, but there are people who have planned out right. And this private market is volatile. And if their savings gets lost in something like after 9/11 or 2008 in the housing crash, I mean, my parents suffered through both of those, and they were saving in a financial responsibility, a financial planner helping them. And now it's like, what do they do if Social Security gets cut? They're living paycheck to paycheck and going into debt just for food.
And I would submit that they're already having that struggle. If you were to look at the way that Social Security has been increased incrementally over time, I think you're going to find the benefit is decreasing one way or another. And what I'm saying is we need to start the transition of eliminating certain agencies that don't work, privatizing and sending them back to the states now, because it's going to help our productive arm. We need to help the productive arm. If we continue, we have, my parents have been getting increased amounts in Social Security, but I can tell you this, if they want to go and get a bigger house right now, the Social Security increases didn't keep up with that.
They couldn't even get a smaller house right now. The housing market is insane. But what would happen if the federal government, if this system and this program actually went in where this Social Security was paid every single month by every single American and they're working Americans, and the federal government never touched it because they have borrowed against it, they have taken from it. This is the fault of the federal government, and the people have had to pay into it with a gun to their head. So how on earth, what would have happened to it with your numbers and thought? how big would that Social Security program be had they never touched it? If it sat there in accrued interest and the federal government let it do what it's supposed to do.
The way they invest it, and I'm not a super expert on how the money's been invested. I think it all goes into treasury bonds. So, I mean, it would be accruing compounding interest each year at 2 to 5%, depending on what the treasury bonds are worth over the life of that money. If you were to treat it like a 401k and just let it accrue based on just the treasury bond return, then that's the amount that should be in there right now. And really,
does inflation hurt it?
Does inflation hurt what's in there?
Would inflation affect the treasury bond value? Would they keep up with the inflation?
Well, Social Security tries to keep up with it. Does the treasury bond and
would an
inflation
investment
go hand in hand?
See, what I'm saying is, what if it's easier to keep the Social Security system, but there's no way to take any money out of it other than what's getting paid in. So the government can't use it in their budgets. They can't borrow against it. Is there a way that, I mean, because that would be easier. Everyone's already used to paying Social Security. And keep in mind, I don't know what I don't know. I'm asking. But if the government just got their mitts off of this money and used it for what it was for and let it accrue interest, and potentially all those who paid in get their money with interest, would that work? Would that be something that is a viable option as opposed to rewriting the whole system and throwing it out?
I don't believe so. I don't believe any way we try and reformulate it in the federal government that they're going to be efficient. It's just the design. And so I do think that to have the option of being able to put it into the productive arm of the country, into our businesses that produce the homes, that produce the automobiles, that produce the, the Googles, even Amazon, Walmart, whatever you want to put your, I know
I don't. I think there's a crony capitalism that is scary to me, that we empower will only be more scary. And I don't.
This also makes me different. This is something
I think what he's saying is by putting it in the productive arm, it has a possibility for growth.
Yes, companies are going to use that. They're going to use that in ways they have to have they have the profit motive in the private sector that the federal government doesn't have, and they don't have to be worried about some of the checks and balances the same way. I mean, they can do things hierarchically, and they can do it a lot faster than what the government can do.
You make a good point. I don't see Nancy Pelosi adding extra money into her Social Security fund. She adds it into the free market fund.
Well, I see places like EAG policies that's put out not just by the government, but cultural policies that's being put on top of these corporations. And I'm watching them, like Budweiser, Target, people actually losing billions because they're going along with the social culture problems. And I mean, people invested in these and long-term goals. I mean, they're hurting.
That is also a good point.
That worries me because there's no safe investment out there if the US dollar goes to crap. There's no safe investment if these crony capitalist businesses cut the ladder with policy from governments. They cut the ladder up once they're at the top. We're in a crony capitalist system that is really dangerous, in my opinion. So it scares me to think of me spending my whole life with my money put aside here and have one company make a choice or one government policy affect a company that could destroy my whole life savings.
Well, I understand, I think, where you're coming from, and I wouldn't put it into one stock or one company. I would diversify, and I'd probably still have, if it's constitutional to mandate retirement savings, with that mandate on a federal level, I would also accompany it with some certain criteria that has to have a degree of diversification, and you can't be withdrawing and still till age 62 or above. And the point still is you have the option of saying, I'm either going to put it into the capitalistic society or I'm going to put it into the government. Let the government try and make good things out of my money, or I'm going to let the free market try and make the good things out of my money. And I believe in our free market system. And I understand, but crony capitalism, some of the different issues this might make me sound like it's not maybe the most popular thing to say in a Republican primary right now, because I'm trying to win a convention. But I am somebody who's maybe a little bit different than the other Republican candidates. We have some corporate governance issues. And I think about financial statements and the stock markets, the financial markets, and the economy in a little different way, maybe because I'm a CPA than some of the other candidates. But a few things that I would work hard on in the Senate is to amend our bankruptcy laws. Then we need more accountability. I would amend the way. I like the REINS Act for adding to additional programs. We need something similar for our investments into private industry. Our government does a lot of picking winners and losers.
Right.
We do a lot of, this is a company that's too big to fail right now. It's going to have huge ramifications if we don't go and pump money into it. And we do that.
Like global warming and stuff like that, agencies that like Obama.
Well, Solyndra,
huge
Obama,
solar.
He picked a company named Solyndra and they went bankrupt.
Right. With our money.
A lot of people probably walked off. So what I would say, like when we have those type of bailouts, first of all, I believe we've way overstepped our bounds as a federal government in injecting ourselves into so many industries the way that we have. We've done it in inappropriate ways. But when there has been a bailout of Lehman Brothers or of General Motors or of Wells Fargo, even, Zions Bank got $5 billion back in 2008 and 9. There has to be some type of recourse to say this can't keep happening. In 2022, you had people who had worked, my understanding, for the Lehman Brothers. They went and started something, Silicon Valley Bank, and they did the same stuff. They gambled again. We've got these people from Wall Street and from some of our Ivy League schools with their MBAs. And I'm not saying it's bad to have an MBA, but they've gotten into this habit of saying, how can I skim off the top? How can I pull away from the transactions? How can I take risks and speculate and gamble a bit and get these really leveraged buyout type platforms and business models where I can kind of be a glorified loan shark in a way where I can pass the risk off to somebody else, but get the reward if it goes well.
Hey, in 2008, look at the people that profited when they started to see that housing market was going to crash, and they profited because they voted against the housing market with their dollars. And instead of that being this huge learning experience that, hey, how people's credit is getting assumed on housing and who's getting housing and all that system, instead of that being a wide-eyed wake up America, let's change our policy, they put it under the rug. They just slid it under the rug and they started over. And I don't think they've changed really anything. And yet it created that bubble and people got wealthy and they also stayed silent. They did make a movie about it recently, but they've become glorified loan sharks, and the actual people in charge of our money at the bank are being less thoughtful on who they give out these loans to.
Sure. And our laws have let them do it in large part.
Our government is probably, absolutely.
We have people who are very good at it. They're very good at taking those risks and passing them off to the banks and taxpayers. It's almost like if you can be a good no remorse salesman and you're okay with doing a little bit of gambling, you can make it big in the United States, but you got to be willing also to fleece your creditors. And people are more and more willing to do that because our laws kind of incentivize it. We had 450,000 bankruptcies, I think, in 2022, and that's not atypical. And I think that is a societal, that's also hurting us. It's hurting the character of our people, and it's hurting us. COVID happened. People aren't having.
Look how many people lost their businesses to COVID. The government chose winners and losers in COVID. Walmart can stay open, but small business can't. Yeah. A lot of people filed bankruptcy because they couldn't keep their businesses alive. And I agree again, that is government involvement. So we get to I am such a free market person. I believe in that absolutely, and a small government, all of that. But we still have to work within the boundaries that we have. And it freaks me out because I don't even know if I dare have my money in a CD or if I put it in the stock market in an IRA. Like, it is so scary because it fluctuates so much. And I'm counting
I
on
would
my
say-
government not to mess with the private business and free market. But the free market now is entwined with cronyism, and we've got insider traders in Washington who are making tons of profit off of choosing these winners and losers. And climate change is a huge religion right now in this country for the left. So they're throwing all our business, all our money and tax dollars into climate change industries. So do I spend my money on that when they could very well fail because the technology isn't there or because there's not buyers there for it yet? It's so complicated. I'm sorry. I'm totally unloading. But
No, you
for
make some good points, and
these
it's not
programs are
it is
terrifying.
complicated, and it's hard to come up with the exact answers. But I can tell you, as a senator, these are things that I look at a lot. This bigger picture, insider trading is a big problem. It's a big problem not just in Congress. It's actually it's a problem as well in corporate America.
Absolutely.
We've got. And it's unfortunate that a lot of the insider traders are also donors. And I mean, I don't mean
It's by design.
I don't
It's
mean
by
to
design.
level out a judgment on everybody in Congress. I don't think that everybody's corrupt in Congress, but I do think we have a lot of publicly traded company executives who are also making decisions about who they're going to give their donations to in Congress. And I mean, I've heard it said by someone else who was running in a race in Utah this year, and I won't say his name, but he mentioned that these donors estimate that they will get like a 3,000% return on their investment. If you go give, I hate to say names, but if you go give John Curtis or Brad Wilson, you go give them $500,000 as a conglomerate super PAC, or a pack of green energy people, they estimate that $500,000 is going to blow up to,
Pay off tenfold because of
it's going
their
to pay off 10,
policy.
20, or 30 fold even.
And I hate to judge a candidate based on their donors. I said that earlier tonight because some people will do what they do because they stand strong on principle, regardless of who's donating to get them there. And
I hope so.
I don't think a lot of Congress men and women go there with the intent to get corrupted. But I do think that because they have to constantly try to get elected and keep that seat, I think it can slowly happen, and money corrupts all the time. And you're right. You get these large super PACs that are funding somebody, and that person agrees to vote on policy that way. Boom, you've just got yourself a 3,000% return, because the longer they're in there and the longer you pay for them to be in there, the more your policies get through. And now you're making money. You're making a ton of money on a very minimal investment in this like broad scale of things. We're going to cut to a hard 7:00. I have a birthday boy at home.
Oh yeah.
So
It's just, it is, we are in a crazy system, and you're 100% correct. The Social Security system is unsurvivable. And I know that, Holly, you're nervous about doing away with it. And I know you want to find options out of it, but if we don't find options out of it, it will find options out of it.
I totally agree. We need to
just
find
going
options. I want to know, like, if we can get the government out. I would love it if there was privatized banks that offered savings accounts of this type of nature, that every person, I think there has to be some mandate that people save for retirement if we're going to help them.
Yeah.
And I think accountability is key, but I don't trust necessarily the stock market, and I don't trust my government to necessarily be good policymakers when it comes to our financial future. So on that note, if there was a privatized bank that made policies like this that the American people bought into and they weren't touched, they were saved, maybe there's a chance there that it could be done.
Do you think an intermittent solution might be pushing it down to the state level and letting states assume that responsibility, whether they want to go complete privatization or if they want to maintain a socialized system or hybrid of such. Do you think that might be an option?
I still wouldn't have the states spearheading it. I'd still have it privatized, but I would much rather have states handling it than the federal government. But no,
Yeah.
I would still move it to the private sector. I think that, and to Holly's points, not trusting, our capitalist society, our free market and whatnot. It's hard when we see the different. That's something I would work on, is to restore trust in capitalism. The younger generation is being told that they need to plan on a 60-year career, and many of them are not planning on having kids or getting married or having a house ever. They're planning on renting. That's an unfortunate change of expectation in the next generation. For me, I look at that and I think, gee, a 60-year career by the time I got done with my master's degree or bachelor's, I mean, we're talking like 84 years old. That's that wouldn't have sounded very appealing to me, and it wouldn't have made me feel a whole lot of desire to go out and try and produce. Feeling like that was what I was going to be stuck with.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of things that I would push to try and restore people's faith in the free market and in capitalism, for corporate governance, bankruptcy laws, with insider trading, with clawbacks, executive clawbacks, with bailout provisions, that we have clawbacks for bailouts. I think it's a problem if people from Silicon Valley Bank walk with $4 or $5 million over 2 years, each of them, and the company has to be bailed out.
Yeah.
That to me is we're incentivizing mismanagement. We're letting them do it. And
It's almost like the
gotta
donors all worked in one place and got special provisions.
It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. People lose faith. They lose faith in capitalism, and then they think that the better answer is to adopt the USSR strategies.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of young people who think that. What they don't know is that the government making promises of everything is ineffective as well. The government, every time a national government tries to guarantee all those needs that you have in your life, there's so many checks and balances and so much bureaucracy behind it. It's just an inefficient, floundering, and it becomes everybody trying to get their piece of the pie instead of going out and trying to live the law of the harvest and produce. So I would tell people still to encourage faith in our free market. And that's what I'd like to encourage people to have faith in general, but I do want them to have faith in the free market. And my laws would be, the things that I would push as a senator would be designed to restore people's faith in the free market. If it's done right, it's a great engine for innovation and for giving people. It doesn't always guarantee everything. United States didn't guarantee that those original colonists were going to have great things. They had to have faith. And I'll tell you, if people work hard and they live good lives and they're true to their principles, true to their faith, true to their family. I talk a lot about faith and family in our campaign, but things have a way of working out. And I hope, so anyway, that's.
No, I agree. And we did get slogged down on talking numbers for quite a while. And I don't know how
accountants,
how sexy that is, but I like talking about them.
I love accountants, but they're like, I always make the joke, like, you should be a comedian, because when you find accountants that have like a flair of humor and stuff, it's like seeing a unicorn in a field, because they're so business oriented, number oriented. I know Sheriff Swimmer's wife, Shannon, she's an accountant for Tooele City, and she's so outgoing and so bright and funny. And I'm like, you're an accountant? Like, it's so rare, because accountants do focus on the hard numbers. And for those of us that can't do math and stuff in our head, we are in awe. And
I like how she did it like Valley Girl, and can do numbers and stuff in our head.
And stuff.
But no, and I enjoy talking numbers. I am not by any stretch I enjoy listening to people talk about it. Hopefully one day I learn and profit from it. But you're right. The promise of the United States was not happiness. It was the pursuit thereof. And I like it right in the beginning. You said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then you threw in the original word and property, which is originally what was in there, but was forced to be taken out because even back then, they knew they were going to stick their hands in my pockets.
Well, we don't own property anymore in this country.
We don't.
We never own it. The government owns it.
I do
and they
not
can
own this
take
house.
it anytime. You can spend
And I
your
don't
whole
believe in-
life.
I don't believe in selling property to those who aren't American citizens either. I have a bit of an issue.
But you
with
realize when you say you'd sell it to American citizens, you're selling it to developers. Because American citizens aren't going to buy it. They won't have a chance because developers will buy up that property the second federal land starts going for sale.
But he said he doesn't believe in selling property to people who
non-citizens.
aren't.
I didn't say citizens.
But the developers, to your point,
Yeah.
selling to developers, there could be some a space to say, hey, we've got a different arm of real estate investors that are kind of really inundating the market right now.
What's that, China?
There might need to be some,
Not
besides
even
China.
China.
China's doing
American
it.
developers are
We also have a
buying
lot
up
of
everything.
developers, and we've got,
LLCs.
LLCs. Berkshire Hathaway has a lot in Utah. I mean, there's a lot of companies like that, and a lot of billionaires who are either doing it through their companies or just doing it themselves as well.
And they're doing it to create smart cities, and they're doing it to create a housing market issue. And this is all, again, it's capital cronyism is what it is. And it's horrible because how do you take federal lands? We're 88% owned here in the county. It's federal out here. So we can grow out. No, we have to grow up. So if they were to sell off the parts of Tooele County that you could actually develop, and they put it on the market and they started selling by lots, it would be one day a developer would go in there and buy all the lots for sale. And that's the argument of the people, because you have no way to distinguish. You can't discriminate or whatever. And they'll pay more than the American regular citizen can. So
they also get a
thought.
smaller per acre price because they're buying more acres.
Exactly. And you saw, we had to just show about Summit County and the hell they're going through with the developer and how slowly the government comes to their side, the developer side, because developers invest in campaigns. And you just said it yourself. Our legislators got lots of developers, real estate. We don't have.
If you guys had Brad Wilson on your show, I'd be curious to hear him talk with you guys about these things, but
he didn't talk with us about these things.
I
We
wouldn't
did
imagine
talk
he
about
would.
federal lands, but not about selling
he didn't
them
talk
off.
about developing.
I wouldn't imagine so. But
Well,
No.
and again, we bring up everything, but we didn't bring up, I don't think we brought up that because we had other, you know how issues go week to week. I think we were big on border with him and, federal agencies. I mean, we've had Trent and Carolyn and Brad. We haven't had John Curtis yet.
Not yet.
But he's been out to the county for a town hall, and I've heard a lot of his topics. And we don't want a cookie cutter senators, so it's nice to have different opinions from everyone, and it's nice to have somebody that knows numbers and knows budgets. That would be really nice to have in DC.
Oh yeah, it's not sexy,
you're a delegate,
but it's
so you
stuff
can
that
help make
works.
that happen.
Yes,
Hey, I'm a delegate, but I'm going to make you work for it.
I've got.
You got to
We
come
will.
out to my county.
Yeah,
We'll come
we've
there.
got 6 minutes left, so I want you to kind of take 3
Share
or
his
4
website,
minutes.
too.
I've got it pulled up. I wanted you to take 3 or 4 minutes and just express to the listeners what your plan is, what you want to do, what your goals are. And while you do that, I am going to share your website. We're going to have a look at that.
Sure.
What a cute family.
I know.
Thank you.
How many kids again? 6?
Jeez, they're so cute.
That is
6.
Oh man.
So what do you do with your free time again? Oh, wait. I'm just kidding.
Never mind. We got the figured out.
Right now, we're campaigning in our free time, but
Oh, they're such a cute family.
That is a very cute family. I
thank you.
And it looks like you got that little girl right in front of this picture here, and the little boy
She's a
that's
cherub.
that your wife's arm is on. They look like they're the little show people of the family.
Yeah, they're characters, that's for
It
sure.
looks like it'd be your third to youngest daughter and your youngest son there.
That sounds about
Or not your youngest son.
my second youngest son.
Second to youngest daughter and second. Ooh, it's middle and middle, huh?
That's a
He's-
nice
They're
mix.
living it up. Yes.
I grew up in 6, but it was 5 and 1. So
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, he's a joker. That kid.
That's good.
Good kid. They're all good kids.
So are you taking donations for your campaign? I don't see a donate button. Am I missing it?
That makes us different. But I am convinced
Ooh.
we don't take donations monetary. We take volunteerism. And partially because I don't feel like we need to balloon the elections industry right now.
But Josh, how are you going to get the word out and in
a lot
print,
of it is word of mouth. And after the convention, I mean, we are totally on board with the Republican platform, and my understanding and with Rob Axon and with other people in the party is that they will back the convention winner, and I'm convinced that there's a very good path to victory for whoever wins at the convention. We've got some candidates who are different. John Curtis and Brad Wilson and Brent Hatch are right now spending the most, I think, and they might be considered the ones who have the highest percentage in polls. And I've spoken with all of them. They're quite a bit different than some of the other candidates. They're a lot different than I am. But I mean, I'd say that our intention is to have an army of volunteers. We have a lot of really good coalitions with family, friends. There's a community that reached out to us in Salt Lake County, a Tongan community that has been really great to work with. And they're also helping us spread the word. But we've had delegates helping. I can't remember one delegate called other delegates. He said, I like what you're doing. I like the way you're doing it. It's different. We need different. I want to help. How can I help? And
That's
we
good.
said, go talk to the rest of your county and get them on board with us. And so we're really trying to reach out to everyone one at a time. And, it's 4,100 people, and they'll decide who goes from convention. And I'm convinced that the convention winner has a very good path this year, with a lot of the signature gatherers probably dividing some votes. We're not against a Mitt Romney this year. It's not two people, one of them being the former Republican presidential candidate. It's going to be a little different, and I think that there's a very good path.
Hey, Josh, what do you do if you win convention? I mean, you're going to need money. You're going to need a lot of money to take on the machine of the election. So, I mean, we're talking television and radio. There's got to be money.
We'll assess that, but we have we already have I don't know we don't take direct donations right now. People go through a store to get signs, to get bumper
I saw the
stickers,
swag
to get
sign.
things like
I
that.
saw that.
And so we do
Go
have
to
mediums.
his website, folks. Josh,
Elect Josh
well,
Randall.
we have it. What is it? Vote Josh.
It's electjoshrandall.com. And if you look in there above the top, there's a store right there. But I want to mention something that you're going like next level. This not taking donations. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is it might be a possible, losing cause, but if it works, this is, I think, the
National
step
news.
forward. Well, not just that, but I think it's the step forward where you're going out with a message, you're standing on a stump, and you're actually saying, this is what I will do. Not, hey, if you send me money, then I can get more news out.
Right.
This is a new way. And
it's powerful, though. Word of mouth is
huge.
powerful. And we're
think
seeing
it's,
it.
I
Trent Stagg's got 3%. We got 2%. Brad Wilson had 8%. And I think, we spent $300 on a website, and he spent $1.5 million on whatever he spent it on. And, that's not, we feel pretty good about the way that it's spreading. We're surprised by how it is, to be honest with you. And it is spreading.
That's great.
It's been astounding to watch. So it's not, we're very encouraged by how many people are on board who we haven't even spoken to yet. And the word of mouth is getting to them. So it's different.
Well, of course, as the party chair for Tooele County, I, have your wife send me your, a link that you want me to post. I'm happy to share whatever you send me.
Thank you.
On our pages. I'm sure many party chairs should help you with that. Just getting to Canada, just getting to your conventions and Lincoln Days and things like that. That's how parties fundraise for their local candidates. And
Yes.
I know that gets expensive. So I hope you're able to raise money. And I don't think it's terrible for you to put a donate button on your page, because a lot of people don't have the time to share it,
They have
but
the money.
are happy to give you $10 for no reason, but they believe in you. And, put a donate button on your page. It doesn't hurt. No one would be angry, but you're going to need it to actually to grow your cause and get your word out.
Is it bad that I'm thinking I want you to keep on without it just for the test? I want to see if America
No,
can
I
be,
don't think it is.
I want to see if the U.S. can be pure.
Can he?
I
but
agree
he
with
can't-
you.
no, he can't afford to have a booth at convention.
I want to see if.
Well,
it can
I'm gonna petition that. That might be one exception where I'm saying, hey, Rob, can you help us at least get a booth here?
Not just state. They have to be. The state party has to be neutral for every candidate. They couldn't
Sure.
give discounts to you and not the others.
Oh, okay, that's fair enough.
And they have to be neutral. And every county party.
Maybe reconsider their policy on the
has-
state convention. I don't know.
How would the state fund that convention? It's 4,000 people in a venue, and we've had this argument
point.
at the SCC.
Does he
Do
have
we
to have a
charge?
booth?
Just a minute. Do we charge delegates to attend their convention, or does the state party fundraise and get it? How they fundraise is by selling booths at convention. So these things it's the same way that I do any events in the party or give to our local candidates. It's what I fundraise at my Lincoln Day and at my convention. You've got
Well,
29 conventions.
I'm with
that
you
if
there.
Want to have a
And-
booth and speaking time, you probably need to get to these 29 conventions.
And we do go to the conventions as much as we really do try to get out. We've been all over the state, and we're going to continue to try and do that. We do show up to events even when we're not speaking. We don't pay sometimes to go on the stage, and we're still there talking to people. We don't pay always
No,
to get in the
that's
straw
great.
polls. So we're not included in some of the straw polls as well, but we do go. And we talk to people, and we bring a few signs. We have a few signs, and we bring them with us. But
You're
it's a
supporting
cultural shift.
yourself. Would you have to have a booth at the convention? Could you stand there, hold a sign, and say, "Hey, look"?
Well, I mean,
this
I've
is
got
me.
6 little walking advertisements that'll be wearing paraphernalia and the hold signs up and
Heck
whatnot.
yeah!
We'll
And
lean
it
them
looks like
against
you
the
have 2 of them
wall.
that'll be dancing too. So
Yes, I'm sure we do.
Well, I know in our
I just-
county, like when I do
like
Lincoln
it.
Day dinner, I don't sell microphone time. If you're
Yeah.
a sponsor of a table or something, you get the same, like you get your own table and all of that. But I know, like at my convention, you don't have to buy a booth at our convention to be on the microphone. And I believe that's the same at the state. We want to educate our populace, but the way we get better governance is by fundraising. It's money is an evil, it's an evil must. And I couldn't host my convention without hosting my Lincoln Day dinner. I couldn't host a new Lincoln Day dinner without last year's Lincoln Day.
And
We
what I would
fundraise.
encourage people to do is to go and donate to the Republican Party in general. And I've said this, and this might sound bad to say, we are very, very committed to trying to win this thing, but we are trying to win it in a different way, no question. And it's it's a bit of a trial of faith of delegates in some ways, and for us as well. But I do believe in saying to people, hey, donate to the party. The party is going to help candidates. And so I do try and encourage people to donate to the Republican Party because I'm pretty aligned with it. I agree with 100% of what's in the Utah State Republican Party platform. And so I do. I think that people need to go and donate to. I would definitely encourage them to vote for to encourage them to donate to the party. But it's
imagine a senator not beholden to a large donor.
Well, who's Mike Lee beholden to? And he fundraises every day.
Imagine that. That'd be so wild. You would be the first in
Different.
DC in 180 years.
Who would be Mike Lee is who he's beholden
I don't
to?
have to look at his donor list, but
But you just have to look at his voting record to tell him he's beholden to someone.
imagine.
I think there's a difference between donors versus how you vote. If you're voting because these certain donors are telling you to vote,
I just listened
Well,
to a
it's dangerous
hard
to
as a
try to run a
candidate.
campaign and win. If you want to win, you have to be able to
I
get
just-
in front of people, and you can't
and
get in
that's-
front of
and-
people without money.
And we do want to win. We do want to win, very, very much so. That said, and this is not a good confession, but it is not the top priority of our campaign to just win, just to win.
No, when your
It's
message is
important to
worth
us.
it, you need to get it out there. And you've got to have more people than, you've got to have,
We
you've got
think we can do it.
29 counties and 4,000 people you need to get in front of. And I hope
Yeah.
you can do it. I'm cheering for you.
Yeah, 900,000 some odd Republicans in
Man,
the
this-
states who are registered. And we,
No, you need 4,000 right now.
well, yes, but 4,000 right now.
And
We
then
think-
you have to go after the 900,000, and that
And that's in June.
900,000, you can't be everywhere all
hard.
at once.
and
so-
yeah, I understand that.
And the state party cannot fund candidates like what you might think. The
I'm
state
just-
party has
not
been
just yet.
building.
And we understand that too. We're trying to go viral in a sense. We are really trying to push a word of mouth.
I love it. You need to
It's different.
you need to make videos, you need to do all that. But
Social
right now,
media is your friend
what's
right now.
popping in my head is the old story we heard, whether it's true or not, of Davy Crockett in Kentucky standing on the stump, going from village to village, carrying a stump, setting it down, standing on it,
There
and
wasn't even a
saying-
million people back
and
then.
saying what he's going to do. And that's what's popping in my head. And it's wild to me. And I love it.
Okay, seriously, you need to hit social medias because that's free, and you do it and get people like him on board and help them share and help you get your word out. I'm cheering for you. I'm just a realist on the political side, because I don't
me
ever
close this
accuse
window.
Mike Lee of having a beholden to anyone. The way he votes, I know how he votes, if it's constitutional or if it's not. I know if he votes against it, it's not constitutional. But I also know that he's got donors of all types, and he's always asking for donations because his message is not popular in the United States. Him, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, their message isn't popular. A lot of times they're standing alone in the Senate, and their bills aren't getting a lot of it. Well, they're getting national attention, but they're not winning.
They're not passing.
And right. But I know it takes money to get there, and it does take money to get the exposure you need. You need people to understand your message. And so I'm wishing you the best of luck, and I'm hoping that you get, do videos, send me a video, I'll share it. And
That is
we'll
something
share
we're
it in our
working on right
pages.
now. We have Brianna just talked with me today about a video that's going to go out over text to delegates, with her talking a bit about our candidacy. And then we might have a follow-up type segment where I'm sharing a few words as well after she says a few things. But we have talked about doing that. So we're actively looking for ways to be more effectively spread the word while being fiscally disciplined. It's a big part of our campaign. Faith, family, fiscal discipline. We talk about it a lot, but we mean it. And we'd like to see, I really believe we need a cultural shift, and there's a lot of power in volunteerism, and we want to promote that. We want to exemplify and practice what we're preaching, I suppose. And I know that sounds maybe naive, and we do consider what you're saying, though, Holly. I mean, you make some points. So we understand.
I'm just hoping.
This is probably going to be $4 or $5 million. I mean, we might see 2 or 3 candidates spend $5 million a piece.
You might, and
they've
sadly,
already spent a couple million.
We have a voter base, and I'm not saying that for convention. I hope they invest everything into convention, but we have a lot that have already spent $500,000 just in signatures. So when you have their guaranteed place on the ballot, if they get signatures, you are gaming and banking on the fact that you get the candidates, the delegates, and delegates
Right.
are being constantly, they're getting
Barrage.
emails. We're getting town halls set up. We're doing town halls. I mean, starting tomorrow, we've got 2 town halls here in the county. These delegates are going to work.
And we
So
have some delegates who are good informants as well, and who are sending stuff. We like to be. We kind of take the tone of, we take the pulse of what's going on in the other races as well.
oh,
So,
don't
or
worry
in
about the other
candidates.
races.
Or not the other
I
races. I
mean,
meant amongst the other candidates. So
you
we
you
are
worry
aware.
about you. Seriously. Get your volunteers to get in touch with your different county party chairs and get a town hall set up where the delegates have one place to go to you and they meet you and all of that. I mean, you don't have much time, and there's 29 counties, and I implore you, get in front of every county. It will matter to them when you show up in person. These delegates want to meet you. You may get a lot of fans when they meet you.
Great advice.
I hope that you're getting good advice, because it is a lot what you're taking on. I'm so excited for you. This is a big adventure, and I just want you to have every opportunity. So, I mean, you don't have to do it with money, but social media is a great opportunity. And us precinct chairs, our job is to help get you in front of delegates. So use them.
I like it. The question is the dream of a government for the people dead? And that's the idea I think you're testing right now.
In a lot of ways.
I love it. That's because it's a dream that.
Okay,
It'll take a miracle. It could take a miracle, but we believe in miracles.
I want it. I want to see it happen. I want to see the test. This could restore my faith in the possibility of the future of this nation.
I love hearing it, Jared. I do. I love hearing it.
Because this is a bigger thing. This is an idea. Whether that story of Davy Crockett's true or not, that's what was taught to us. That's a historical fiction that was taught to us. And this is that dream that one man with his voice can make it happen. Not one man with $1 million behind him from the faceless. That one man with his voice can make it happen. Government of and by the people.
Before we go, how do you feel about Donald Trump? You support Donald Trump?
I'm supporting him. I'll be voting for him. He's. I said probably earlier a little bit. I didn't think he did everything perfect in his presidency, but he did a lot of great things. Things.
I feel the same. I feel the same way.
Everyone, that's electjoshrandall.com. Go on there, check it out. Check out his store. He's got ball caps. He's got T-shirts. He's got signs. He's got pins. He's got stickers, bumper stickers. He's got the little lapels and the bigger, like old-fashioned stump stickers.
Order them in bulk and give them to all your friends.
You get them cheaper if you order them in bulk, too. I looked at the prices.
Exactly, you do. You get them cheaper. Yep. Go buy some signs and put them in the yard right next to the delegates.
There you go. Hey,
so they can
go
see
check
them every day.
This is a dream. I know most people probably don't feel as, I'm a little emotional about it because
why didn't you go buy a sign?
This is what everyone's arguing against. Is we got to get money out of government. I'm tired of rich people buying our politicians. This is regardless of whether your politician's honest or not. This is a politician that is by himself. And his family and his 6 kids and his lovely wife. And your kids look great. Your wife is lovely.
Thank you for
She's
showing
awesome.
up on the show today. And thanks for being patient with us in our previous interview.
And everyone who's listening, thank you for listening to the slog of mathematics that Jared does not like, or that Jared does not understand, but likes to hear about, hoping that one day it'll break through. And he knows what someone is saying.
We really appreciate you guys hanging in there for this. Is never the length of our show ever. So we are an hour past our time. And we'd like to thank you, Josh. And we'd like to thank your wife as well for helping us connect you. And I'll be hearing from you guys soon, I hope.
You will. You definitely will. And please.
You'll get your list from the state party as soon as all the counties have completed their upload.
We will. We're already working on Weber.
I want to apologize for sending the link to the incorrect email earlier, and then we got that corrected. But thanks for hanging on there. Thanks for coming on a half hour late and everything else. Holly is dancing next to me. So
I've got a kid with a birthday. I
we've
should
got
have
to
been
cut
home an
this
hour
out.
ago.
That's
All right.
Your house
understandable.
smells delicious.
Josh, thank you very much. Good
Thank you,
luck.
guys.
I love what you're doing. Everyone, have a wonderful, safe, or maybe just a little unsafe weekend.
What?
Bye.
Bye.